Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for another god video. Last year we looked at my favorite god in Pathfinder, period. This year, I pulled back just a little bit, instead looking at my favorite deity of the main 20, which I made a little secret, is Desna, the Song of the Spheres, deity of dreams, luck, stars, and travelers. With that said, let's hit the road. But before we begin, let's set out a roadmap which you can follow without my guiding hand. The place to start is Gods and Magic, there being one for both editions. The main road itself was first forged in the second book of the Rise of the Rune Lord's adventure path, titled The Skin-Saw Murders, making Desna the first deity we were given a full profile of. The steps were of course retraced again in the book Inner Sea Gods. A little more off the beaten path was found in the book Face of Purity, and wonderful sights were discovered in plain adventure. As for really getting into the weeds, we have information from places like Divine Anthology, Paths of the Righteous, and the Ruins of Azlanti Adventure Path. Desna is one of the oldest deities, once taking the form of a celestial moth. Some traditions say it was she who painted the stars into the sky at the beginning. She would eventually begin taking a more humanoid form under the mentorship of the deity Kokonis, and after his passing would inherit the domain of travel, after which she left the solitary existence she once had, and decided to spend her life traveling among the stars. Which brings us to our first side tangent, the part of the show where we deal gently with topics which might, just one day, be willing to rip our heads off. Today we talk upon another lost god, Kokonis, god of beasts. Kokonis was the mentor of the goddess Desna, and spent many nights telling the young girl stories of the places he had traveled to throughout the universe. However, a demon lord by the name of Loremaster envied his control over beasts and conspired to gain the power for herself. So she set up a winding road that the god could not resist traveling down, and sent wave after wave of monsters against him, until she, in the form of a jackal, was able to rip away his domain over beasts, and a large chunk of his flesh with it. Dying, the deity gave Desna his domain over travel, allowing her to see the places she had heard about in her mentor's tales. And since then, Loremaster and Desna have been sworn enemies, their followers fighting whenever they cross paths. Desna's appearance is, well, not consistent. Again, her original form is a giant space moth. Her humanoid forms are assumed, but also necessary when dealing with humans. Her usual appearance tends to be a beautiful elven acolyte of her faith, working to help those she thinks needs it, whether that involves making suggestions on parts of a holy text to read, or singing and dancing in dark times. When she wants people to know who she is, she grows a pair of giant butterfly rings. Though if the situation calls for it, she will instead have the dull wings of a moth. Desna has two sides to her, the flighty side that needs to see, to experience, to grow, and the side which deals with all the heartbreak of her life, all the friends she has lost, all the mistakes she has made. But she almost always is seen with a smile. Sure, the sorrow sticking around, but the next destination ever shining. But knowing sorrow, she also stands for freedom and good dreams, and stands against those who would harm either. It is actually kind of surprising when you start laying them out, how many enemies which Desna has. But on top of Loremaster and Guthlander, she also finds herself fighting to stop those of bad dreams, of dark nights, and of the terrors of the void. I guess that is just how much freedom is worth protecting. Desna is the deity of travel, and her primary followers are those who travel, regardless of the reason or lack of reason, whether blazing a trail, whether going out on an adventure, or whether sailing the open sea. She also is connected to luck, and so gamblers, thieves, and those who deal in the dark without being evil find themselves at her altar. Desna also encourages her followers to express themselves in ways which they find comfortable, which leaves behind many songs and theater performances. It is said that all songs considered old favorites were once written by one of Desna's bards. Which brings us to a second side tangent, a class of warriors who follow Desna, the Sphere Singers. Sphere Singers are the desire to travel to its most extreme form, and combine the powers gifted to them by Desna and their talents with music to travel beyond what most can. Their singers are primarily bards, though their songs allow them to find the path, protect their dreams, and fly over land. They also learn to talk to others through their dreams, and eventually turn into fae with the power to travel the stars, the same wings as the goddess fluttering behind them. The priesthood of Desna has no chain of command. Everyone is allowed to travel the way they desire. They're not against leaders and central governments in general, but if one lacks merit, they see no reason to pretend to care about them. The priests also lack regalia, preferring simple travel clothes to jewelry. Their most common activity is traveling from one holy site to another, repairing and restocking the holy site as need be, so it is always ready for another traveler to visit. Considering how much music is important to the Song of the Sphere's faith, the priests also necessitated to keep familiar with popular songs, theater, and literature, much less perform themselves if they can. And when a priest gets too old, to where their body cannot travel, they just abandon it, wandering through dreams by the grace of their goddess. Desna does not have many temples to herself, instead letting the crossroads serve as a place her faith can always find sanctuary. The temples that she does have always will have at least one room open to the sky, where one can look at the stars and be comforted by the goddess. Usually they serve some use for astronomy as well. Shrines are built of stone, being places where one leaves and takes simple provisions as needed, and where scrawled notes give the visitor advice or encouragement. Both places are also associated with butterflies, and one can see anything from the use of moths to produce silk for the temple's finances, to armies of butterflies devouring the clothing of those who would harm the holy place. Desna's realm is the star Seneschal. This star acts like the North Star for many planets, as well as planes, with Elysium also having the star. However, on the inside, one will find the realm in all its glory, serving as its own demiplane. Here, Desna is welcoming to guests, including many of the other gods, and will entertain them within her castle. There are also many who stay for extended periods of time, but by their nature, many of Desna's followers just stay for however long is needed before setting off on the next journey. Now, other interesting things about Desna's faith. First, where is Desna worshipped? She is connected to the elves, and so has a decent representation in Kyonin. She is popular with the Visarion, and therefore call Varisia and Ustalov home. She is also commonly worshipped in places where people do not stay in one place for long, including the river kingdoms, Numeria, and the land of the Lenorm kings. Nidal, surprisingly, is also known for her worship, her worshippers working to undermine the dark rule of Zon-Kuthon. She is also worshipped in Tianxi, where her places of worship include the elven country of Jinan, the Tengu country of Kolwani, the Asimir country of Tianling, Minkai for being associated with the Tianmin, just like she is with the Visarion on Avestan. And the wild areas like the Forest of Spirits, the Well of Heaven, Shengarang, and parts of the Forest of Nagadra. That's also uninhabited in places. And finally, the Host-riding nation of Hongul. Desna has two holidays associated with her. The Ritual of Stardust, held on the summer and winter solstices, where they send bonfire sparks into the night sky, and the Swallowtail Festival, held at the autumn equinox, held in celebration of a blind child who once healed an aspect of Desna. Finally, Desna's holy text, outside of the writings on the shrine, are the 7 scrolls, the entries of Desna's faith summarized into 7 easy-to-carry scrolls, so travelers can take them anywhere. Speaking on books, it's time for our third side tangent, another divine fighting style. Maybe the last one as well. I did not check if Rasma had one planned. Either way, the Clamor of the Spheres is a collection of fighting techniques connected in some way to Desna, whose purpose is to use the sound of the combat to give you advantage. Of course, there is much focus on using the Star Knife in the heat of battle, and it all accumulates in an almost dance-like style that is referred to as Desna's Shooting Star. Those who have mastered this style can use charisma to augment their fighting prowess, and, with a little more training, can cause a single strike to cause multiple hits. Now for a look at the relationship between Desna and others. First, let's go with her divine servitors. Firebrand is a Lillian composer, known for her silvery black appearance. She hates being pulled away from her writing, but it's part of being good. Nightspear is a jet black aviole with bright silver eyes. He is agile in the air and has excellent singing voice. The Prince of the Night is a genie of pure white smoke. He is elegant and demands payment in jewelries. Finally, her herald is the Night Monarch, a giant butterfly the size of a dragon. The creature does not communicate through words, but instead through telepathy or dreams. As for other gods, King Kaelin has been known to try to seduce her a time or two, but seems to have never been successful. Though her relationship with Sanray and Shaelin have been much more than successful. She has personal vendettas against both Loremaster and Guthorna, and less personal with Ravagug and Zon-Kuthon. She also is fast enemies with Alazra, and will also stand in opposition to most outer gods. And one more ally, long forgotten, would be our final side tangent. Elion, the Farseeker, Atlantean god of colonization, exploration, and discovery. He was the deity who helped the Azlanti seek new lands, having told them about lands outside of their island continent, and taught them how to read the wild so they can make it through unknown places safer. His followers were among the first Azlanti to reach Avestan, Garund, and Arcadia. The church sent out thousands of priests to explore beyond the horizon and bring back information on new lands. They may have been the ones who suggested to the Azlanti to colonize the moon, and maybe have made the first Wayfinder. As you can imagine, he and Desna's faith got along well, though his faithful found her a little too flighty for their tastes. After Earthfall, his faith disappeared from Galorian. Some say he decided to travel away from Galorian, explore other planets and stars. However, it is said his faithful did lead people to safety during Earthfall, saving many people who would have otherwise died. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. However, was there not a reasonable way to do this until now? That's right. Next week, we have more Desna on our hands as we look at our incarnation in Starfinder. See you then.